Hey, it's Bram Duffee. Welcome to the session on today's talk on voice in delivering for public speaking. And I want to explore some of the key elements of vocal delivery, things like volume, pitch, rate, pauses, vocal variety, pronunciation, and articulation. So understanding and practicing these components can enhance the effectiveness of your public speaking. Let's start out with the aspect of volume. Volume is the relative loudness of the speaker's voice while giving a speech. The correct volume for giving a speech is somewhat louder than normal conversation. Speakers whose volume is too low are just often perceived less positively. So that's why adjusting your speaking volume is really important. When considering how loud or soft you should speak, take into account the size of the room, the number of people in the audience, and whether or not you're using a microphone, and of course the level of background noise. All of this helps project your voice effectively. It's important to breathe deeply from your diaphragm rather than shallow and up close by your vocal cords. This is the kind of stuff that matters when we think about volume. So moving on to pitch and intonation. Pitch is kind of like the range of sounds from high to low, determined by frequency, which is the number of vibrations that go into that. Your natural pitch is determined by your anatomy. The intonation, on the other hand, is the rising and the falling of that vocal pitch across different phrases and sentences that you use. So by varying your intonation, you can convey different moods, demonstrate your level of enthusiasm, and show concern for your audience. All of this stuff shows a commitment to your speech occasion and is indicating that you're all in. And your pitch and intonation also do a lot to show your personality. You know, it's important to avoid speaking in monotone because it can lead to an audience that doesn't care anymore. That's one of the reasons why PowerPoint kind of blows, because you don't end up with much more than reading off the paper sometimes, off the screen. So to keep your speech engaging, you want to hold your audience's attention. We have to think about varying your pitch. And a helpful tip to improve in this area is to record yourself and practice the speech. Listen to the recording, and it's going to help you identify ways that speaking in monotone, and it'll help you improve on them. Speaking with particular rate or tempo refers to the pace as to which your speech is delivered. So native English speaking adults typically speak between 120 and 130, like 120 to 170 words per minute. It's kind of like the biggest range. But it's really crucial to vary your speaking rate, because otherwise you're not going to hold your audience's attention and you're not going to adequately convey the meaning. I don't know if you ever notice, but sometimes there are YouTube videos that I happen to catch that doesn't have a human speaker. It's a voice speaker that's done by the computer. And it's obviously annoying, and it's difficult to understand the full nuance sometimes. So I don't know about you, but it bores me to death. So a slower rate can indicate that you're being thoughtful and serious, but if it's too slow, it's going to just bore your audience. On the other hand, if you have a lively pace to the conversation, then that looks like your enthusiasm and excitement. Always be alert to your audience reaction to that pitch rate so that you can adjust when necessary. The other thing I want to talk about, and it's strange maybe to talk about in this area, but I want to talk about pauses. Pauses are another powerful tool in speech delivery because they can enhance the meaning by providing a type of punctuation. They emphasize a point, draw attention to the thought, and allow listeners to have a moment to sort of contemplate what you just said. However, it's important to avoid vocal fillers. unnecessary, undesirable phrases that would cover up that pause. So some of those things might be saying or I do it really bad too. It's important to always try to get better at not doing that. If you have a planned pause in your presentation, it works out a lot better because you are doing it for emphasis that you know about. And one of the techniques that I like to talk to students about when overcoming speech anxiety is to work towards being comfortable standing in front of the room without any noise. You know, there's a lot of pressure that's put on the speaker just because they're standing in front of the room to say something. And you know that in some conversations, maybe that same type of pause can deliver such a powerful element to the conversation that the other person breaks. The other person has to be the one that speaks next. So it's a really important tool to use, especially when you can plan for it. Now, vocal variety involves all of this kind of variation of volume, pitch, rate, and pauses, like we talked about. But there's also the pronunciation and articulation that happens, because pronunciating and articulating really impact that speech delivery. People have to be able to hear you and understand you. So pronunciation refers to the correct formulation of the words. Articulation refers to the clarity or forcefulness in which those sounds are made. So if we have a different dialect at play, meaning, well, you all know that in the English language, depending upon the part of the country, there are very many different ways to say some of the same things. And so it's important to stay as neutral as possible, especially when you know that your audience might come from different places. To improve your pronunciation and articulation, regular practice is key. It's all part of the game. So if you tend to mumble, then try to speak loudly. And if you practice clear and precise enunciation of these word sounds, you'll end up with an effective delivered message. But practice is part of this. And people say, oh my gosh, I can't imagine practicing. I'm trying to do this as little as possible. I want to just get it over with. Well, it's that lack of preparation and that lack of practice that just make for bad speeches and make you highly anxious and just end up with bad grades. So I think that hearing yourself speak on video can make a really big difference when it comes to enunciation and mastering your speaking rate and using strategic pauses and being able to pronunciate, articulate, and use vocal variety. And I want to say it, I'm not that good either. We have to all recognize that we're human, and we have to be able to meet the moment as best we can. And in this case, we know that if there's a planned presentation, the way to meet that moment is through practice. So I appreciate you here today looking at this with me, and I look forward to seeing your speeches come out next.